Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Finance with Lanny, guys. Today, it's going to be all about Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF, VYM, why I absolutely love this ETF, why it's the cornerstone and foundation to my investing portfolio. But really, we're going to start with me choosing to be a dividend investor and why VYM is the perfect complement to what I am trying to do. And again, I'm not trying to sell you on this ETF, but I'm here to hopefully help you maybe see a different perspective. Maybe you're a beginner investor looking to start investing. Maybe you're not aware of what dividend income and dividend growth can do on that journey to financial freedom or even just to a traditional retirement, guys. So sit tight, grab a beer, grab a coffee, grab your loved ones, as I like to say, and let's dive into why I love Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF. Let's get it. All right, guys, so it all started when, 13, 14 years ago, back in 2009, 2010, when I really decided to become not just an investor, but to become a dividend investor. So that's kind of like how this really all started. And why did I choose dividend investing? Because I wanted my assets to provide income for me to cover my living expenses earlier than a traditional retirement, and then for the rest of my life, essentially. And you might be asking yourself, well, how is that possible? Well, sometimes individual stocks or ETFs pay a dividend. And not only do they do that, but they grow a dividend. And not just are there individual stocks, but there's also exchange traded funds or ETFs to help simplify that process for you. For a few highlights, the S&P 500, for instance, which is the top 500 companies in the US, the index currently yields about 1.5 to 1.7%. Big popular one is Vanguard's VOO, which I currently do own and invest in every single day. But I wanted something that had a little bit more pop to the dividend currently, because 1.5, 1.7% dividend is great. But I wanted to retire, just a little bit earlier than, 60 or 65. And by a little bit, I mean hopefully decades earlier. But I needed something that provided more income but still had dividend growth. And that's really when I decided to really pursue Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF. I first started buying this ETF in my retirement account, probably a decade ago. And, I would add to it with my, Roth IRA funds or my traditional IRA funds here and there. So it was really just in my retirement accounts because I was really investing into individual stocks like your Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Pepsi, Lockheed Martin, Visa, Pfizer, you name it, in my individual taxable account. I really didn't have any ETFs in there, but then that all really changed during the pandemic. So why did the pandemic change what my investing philosophy was for my taxable account? Well, it is the unpredictability in the stock market. I'm a big believer in time in the market is better than timing the market, of course, as well as you can't ever guess or predict what the stock market will do today, tomorrow, next week, next year. But I could probably tell you over the next few decades, the stock market gradually will be going up between, 7 to 10%, let's say. So during the pandemic, it was hard for me to, purchase stocks sometimes because I wasn't sure if I was buying it at a high, I was buying it at the low, will it go lower, It was just very much a cumbersome feat to, I was almost trying to time the market with my stock purchases. In July of 2020, my wife and I decided to start buying in our taxable account Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF, VYM, every single week. And again, how do I do that? I go on, at first it was on Ally's investing platform, but now I really am a big believer, big pusher for SoFi's investing app. Again, this is not a sponsored video by any means, but I use SoFi's investing app to automatically buy Vanguard's VYM every single Monday, a round dollar amount, buying partial shares. And I don't have to even think about it or put a trade in. So that's really helped in buying Vanguard's VYM for me. So for 3 years now, I've been buying Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF. So again, to get back to it, I'm a dividend investor trying to reach financial freedom sooner. So why is Vanguard's VYM the best thing that I like? Well, it's pretty simple. So first, we really should start with dividend growth. So typically my portfolio over the course of over a decade has traditionally yielded, over 3% with usually a dividend growth rate between 5 and 8% every single year. Sometimes it just depends on what happens that year, but over the course, it's probably in that true 6.5 to 7% range on average. So I wanted an ETF that I didn't have to think about it, didn't have to review financial statements, that I just needed to buy the ETF that, owned hundreds of stocks, that really reduced my risk and time to evaluate. And that's where Vanguard's VYM came into play. Because first, that dividend growth, as I was just saying, actually contains a 6.94% compounded dividend growth rate from the periods of 2014 through 2022. That's not even considering the dividend growth that we've already experienced this year. So on average, 6.94% per year. So that was right in the same range as my overall dividend stock portfolio. And then I needed that perfect complement. I strive to get at least 9%, and if I can, 10% with dividend yield plus dividend growth. Because to me, that's the true compounding factor. Because when you reinvest the dividends, yes, I reinvest my dividends. I have never turned off DRIP, especially in the accumulation phase, because I just try not to time the market. So with DRIP, when you get the dividend from VYM, for instance, it's buying shares back at the current dividend yield. Now, the current dividend yield for Vanguard's VYM is over 3%. So very similar to my dividend stock portfolio overall. In fact, it yields right now, I believe, 3.06%. So with the dividend growth of 6.94% plus a dividend yield of 3.06% based on August 11th stock price, you're at a 10% dividend factor, as I like to call that. So to me, it's like the perfect complement because you're getting pretty much a 10% compounding income factor if you're dripping your Vanguard high dividend yield ETF dividends every single quarter. Gives you definitely a full flavor. It complements my desire to reach financial freedom sooner by buying an ETF that complements my essentially individual taxable stock portfolio with a very similar yield and a very similar yet strong dividend growth rate of close to 7%. But that's not the only reason why I like the ETF. This ETF has over 400 different stocks within the ETF, and the top 10 only make up about 25% of the overall ETF. So you might be wondering, what exactly is in the top 10 stock positions within Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF? Guys, let's just check it out. Here's a quick screen. There's ExxonMobil, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Merck. You've got Chevron in there, Pepsi, AbbVie, you name it. Top 10 dividend stocks within VYM are all dividend stocks that continue to grow their dividend year after year and do it at an above average dividend growth rate, in my opinion. So that is also why I like it, because of the diversification, and it actually owns a bunch of stocks that I don't even have in my portfolio, such as Merck or Chevron, just to name a couple. So again, I've been investing in Vanguard's VYM, building it up to almost 1,100 shares at the time of this video, because I know that going forward, and no matter what, with a good high probability, that dividend yield is going to be at or above 3% with a between 6 and 8% dividend growth rate, currently about 6.94%. And that's going to continue to compound 10% per year as I'm reinvesting those dividends. So that is exactly why I love Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF and why I haven't stopped buying VYM every single week. And again, I achieve that by having a high savings rate, automating my savings from my paycheck and other income sources such as side hustle income and other ways that I earn income. I have that going automatically into my brokerage account that automatically buys shares into VYM. Again, if you're interested, SoFi links are in the description below. So guys, that's why I love VYM. Hopefully it helps you on your investing journey or dividend investing journey as you're starting out. Don't forget to like the video. Definitely subscribe to this channel so you can follow and watch your boy Lanny talk about investing in personal finance. Appreciate the stop by, and I'll catch you on the next one.